Okay, now we are live and streaming is on live YouTube as well. Okay, so over to Professor Yogendra.
Thank you, Aditya. Very good afternoon to one and all the panelists, Dr. Peter, Mr. Akhand Pratap Singh, and Janil. So it's my pleasure to introduce our eminent speakers today. Dr. Peter, he has been working in leading learning and teaching development since 2002, and he has worked at the one of the Asia's leading university, NTU, the Nanyang Technological University, as a head of its teaching, learning, and pedagogy division, and has garnered several awards related to the learning and teaching development from the Australian Learning and Teaching Council. With his rich insights in the education and its development, we invite Dr. Luker to share his views and the perspectives on the role of augmented reality and virtual reality in the higher education. Currently, Dr. Peter Luker is working as a Chief Learning Officer at the EN Reality, Singapore. Another speaker we have, our second speaker, Mr. Akhand Pratap Singh. He's the director at the EN Reality, and he takes care of the business growth initiatives, strategy, and partnership of EN Reality India, covering Pan India and Middle East. Mr. Singh is a business graduate from one of the top 10 business schools in the world, specializing in the IT management. That is from the and he worked earlier with the companies like Capgemini, KPIT, Relio, etc., with the Soaring Eagle and Pat on Back and Sales Professional of the Year awards with him. So we welcome you, sir, Mr. Akhand Pratap Singh. And another speaker we have Mr. Janil Malhara. He works as a pre-sales at the Eon Reality. Janil is a technology enthusiast with approx more than 2 years of experience in the augmented reality and virtual reality domain, and he brings a terrific blend on technical expertise along with the strong business acumen. And he has worked on different industry projects and also specialized in IBM BA program. So I welcome all the three speakers.
And also, we should not forget that Janil is our alumni.
And yes, he is one of the alumni of Techno India NJR.
Actually, I was about to add that.
Over to you, sir. Yeah. Over to
Fair
you,
enough.
sir.
So yeah, thanks, Professor Yogendra, for that short and a holistic brief and the introduction. Really a pleasure coming on board and setting up some sort of a knowledge sharing session, I would rather say, and would appreciate the next 45 to 50 minutes. We'll keep it interactive and a two-way communication so that we can make the best out of it. Again, as Professor has already briefed, so I'll not get into our team introduction, which all of us we can do by ourselves. But the good thing is, one important element rather I would address is we are all learners, and it's always good to go back to the learning and academic institutions. So thank you for giving us an opportunity and arranging such an informative session. Today's speaking session, just to give you the clarity, the flow, what we have came up with, I'll just brief you about what is Eon Reality, what we do, what we exactly known for. And then, I would request Peter Luker, who is also in today's session, he's a keynote speaker, to share his perspective and experiences about, the way he sees the future of education. He's quite closely working with not only NTU, but also the top 10, universities across the globe. So would love to share his perspective. And at the same time, the whole intention is how we can help students basically to convert particularly this pandemic into a pool of potential opportunities, right? Problem comes with opportunities. It's just what matters is the right set of intent and mindset that we have to take it forward, and how we on reality can partner with the students at Techno and take it to a next level. So you talk about more from an employment perspective, you talk about more from an internship, or working on some live industry projects in a freelance manner, whatever. We are quite open with that. So with that, we'll straight away move into the topic, and I'll just cover the introduction part, and then Peter, I'll hand it over to you. Talking about beyond reality, I'm sure if those who are like interested in AR and VR, okay, I'm sure you must have come across name Eon Reality, or companies like Unity, Apple. Of course, they're doing a lot of stuff in AR and VR now. Oculus Quest is doing a lot of stuff. So particularly talking about beyond reality, we are one among the pioneers and world leaders in developing augmented and virtual reality-based knowledge transfer solutions. Now here, I want each one of you to pay attention when I say word knowledge transfer, okay? Because when we talk about augmented and virtual reality, it is like, majority of the people, and, it's a perception, basically. We try to connect AR and VR to more to do with entertainment industry or gaming industry, right? But the best part is being one of the pioneers in this space. Eon, the only one of the strongest reason why we were sustainable in last 21 years was because we always focused. This technology has a huge to offer in the core sectors like education, aviation, energy, aerospace, medical, manufacturing, so on and so forth. And also, I have a fantastic, a report from McKinsey that says, if you see the over macro environment, the market cap or across the globe, hardly 5 to 10% of the total market cap lies with the gaming industry or entertainment industry for AR and VR. Rest all potential opportunity lies with these core sectors, and this is where we brings the USP. As an industry leader, we cover almost the length and the breadth of the globe, positioned in 27 different geographical locations, and covers almost every continent on the planet. Last 21 years, it's not that only that we go with the tons and tons of years of experience, but what we really earned is the customers' trust and the value add that we have generated and contributed to the industry. Last 21 years, I'm so proud and happy to say that we work with more than 500 plus enterprise customers. To that extent, I can say you give me an industry and probably the top 10 players in that industry from Fortune 500 list, either they are our existing customers or maybe we have worked with them in the past. We also work a lot with academic institutions. So, and especially if I see this COVID scenario in last 4 to 5 months, there was a huge revolution. I literally saw things which were treated like AR and VR from a teaching perspective. It was treated more like a luxury or good to have things. It transformed into a mandatory stuff that academic institutions need to have it. And also we work quite closely with the governments, almost like 55 plus government bodies across the world. Now, another 2 to 3 minutes I wanted to address, and I want all the engineering guys to pay attention to this particular slide. I'm sure there must be people from first year, second year, third year, fourth year, or maybe like people who have joined in through YouTube channel. If you are a learner, okay, this is where 3 elements is very, very important, right? Human 2.0, Classroom 3.0, and Industry 4.0. What does that mean? Looks quite interesting, positioned quite in a decent manner, but the whole perspective here, what we're trying to convey to the audience and to the world is Human 2.0 is basically where Eon is working consistently to make an effort to help governments and communities to basically to help the community and societies to grow beyond human constraints, right? Humans, if we can help them to cross that chasm and increase their efficiency, right? Productivity, efficiency, right? Classroom 3.0 is all about to do with academics. Classroom 3.0, it was introduced by jointly with Peter Luker and Mr. Bertil Ederson. I would love Peter in his part of his session. He can briefly touch upon Classroom 3.0, but also, I wanted to cite here the example, Mr. Bertil Ederson, who used to be the provost and the president for NTU. He has basically come up with this concept, and now, in fact, he was the chair member for Nobel Prize Committee and used to be the president for almost a couple of decades for NTU. And Peter Luker worked very, very closely with Mr. Bertil, and I'm so happy that Peter is here. So, so that we can get some perspective around it. And Industry 4.0, very critical. This is where, all our aspirations and expectation drills down to, getting associated with, the industry players, finding a good, role or a job. It's all about how Eon gives you the tools and techniques to bridge the gap between man and machine. With that, there is a small video, and then we'll.
Okay, we're at the building. We're going in. Oh, we're getting a heat signature from the first floor.
Yeah, got it.
We found someone.
We've got a flashover at level 3, guys.
Yeah, copy.
Evacuate immediately to rally point.
Coming out.
That was the
What you can see on the
example
screen
in fire and safety.
and this is the lobby, which is over there.
Hey Sam, do you think we can have these 3 outlets done by tomorrow?
Hi, boss.
Can you please run a quick inspection of checkpoint 48? I'm getting some inconsistent readings over here.
Let me have a look. I can see an open bulb there.
Alright, that's great. Thanks.
Well, the video looks quite futuristic, and but at the same time, those people who, those who all have the experience in AR and VR, the video is not actually looks futuristic. These are more like real-time implemented solution in the industry, and just a quick snapshot of the industry customer that we work with. Just a snapshot across the verticals. These are few of the academic partners that we work aggressively with, and a quick snapshot on the government side. Now, what I'll do is I'll stop my presentation in the interest of the time, and I want Peter, because I'm quite excited and really wanted to thank Peter for taking out some time. I know your schedule, your calendar has been shared with me, so over to you without wasting any further time and seconds. Over to you, Peter, and then once you're done, we'll take it forward.
Thank you, Akon.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you could stop share. Okay, I'll start sharing my screen. Sorry, I'm having something funny's happening here. Okay. All right. So, as Akon has already said to you, I've been working in education now, in higher education, for quite a long time. I've been with Eon Reality now for 7 months as the Chief Learning Officer. And prior to that, my main interest, I was a normal researching and teaching academic way back in the 1980s. I worked for the University of New South Wales for 20 years. And I've become interested in the future of education and how to change higher education. Also, as Akant has already said to you, I worked with Professor Bertil Anderson for the last 10 years at Nanyang Technological University. Some of you know that during that time, the Nanyang Technological University went from being around about number 85 in the world to number 11 in the world. That means that during that 10 years, we made a lot of very big changes. And a lot of those changes were around the way that education was delivered. So one of the things I'd like to talk to you about is, first of all, to run through what some of those changes are, but also why I think education needs to change. And also to talk about the relationship of all of that to augmented and virtual reality. So these are as a headline, I'd say these, I think, are the chief educational challenges for higher education in particular, probably for all education, but in particular for higher education. That is the gap between theoretical knowledge and real world application. Now, I have worked in 3 universities full time, but I've actually done consultancies at about another 7 or 8 universities around the world. And I hear exactly the same thing everywhere I go. And that is, employers complain that students come out of university with quite good knowledge, but they don't know what to do with the knowledge. They don't know how to apply it. They don't know how to use what they know in real world problem solving. In other words, a gap between theoretical knowledge and real world application. In a meeting we had recently with Los Angeles City College, community college, who train nurses, amongst other things, they said that they wanted to use AR and VR because they're worried about the gap between what the students learn in the lectures and their need to apply what they learn in actual working life. So that is a serious problem around the world, and it's got a lot to do with the way that we have traditionally educated people. Secondly, and related to that, is problem solving and critical thinking. How do we get students to be real, on their feet problem solvers, to be able to think around new problems when they're confronted with new situations? And the other thing is the ability to learn how to learn. Now, I know that's a little bit of a cliche, but it's really important because all of us are going to live through, especially younger people now, are going to be living through a lot of changes in their life. It's not a matter of going and just learning a career and then doing it for the rest of your life. It's a matter of learning how to adapt to continual change, and that requires knowing how to learn. We've never been very good at it. At universities, I think we've been not only not good at it, we've been poor at it. So what does it take, therefore, to update education to reflect what research tells us? This is another thing that drives me. When I first started teaching at university, nobody taught me how to teach. And I thought that was pretty strange, because what guarantee was there that I had any skill at teaching? You wouldn't send your kids to school with teachers who hadn't had teacher training. All teachers have training, at school teachers have training. And yet university teachers, for some reason, never used to have training. Well, fortunately, that's changed. So at all of the universities that I've been at and many others around the world, it's compulsory for faculty to learn how to teach, and so it should be. It's very strange that that's never been the case before. But the other thing is that research, of course, over the last 30 years tells us that, in fact, a lot of the ways that we taught in the past were not particularly effective. And we know much, much more now about how humans learn. And I would like to suggest to you throughout this that augmented and virtual reality actually fits into what the research tells us, and it's a very exciting way forward. So if I were starting my career now, I think this is something that I'd be going into. These are the things that we found at NTU, and I will talk a little bit about NTU as Akhand has suggested. These were the things that we found needed to change, and we changed them quite considerably. And in a sense, you can't do any one of these things without doing the others. So it's not just a matter of changing one of these things, it's a matter of changing all of them in order to change the overall learning and teaching environment. One of the most important was changing the physical spaces in which students learn. And I am going to talk a bit about that because at NTU it's significant. Changing the physical spaces, changing the educational technology, changing teaching approaches, and changing the way that students are assessed. All of those are just as important as each other. Now, this is what the classrooms used to look like at NTU. When I first arrived in 2010, this was what most of the classrooms looked like. And we had something like 200 or so of these, and we have not a single room that looks like this left. All of these have gone. There are no rooms with front-facing chairs anymore. I'll say something very quickly about this. This is a very poor arrangement for teaching. It's a poor arrangement for a number of reasons. One is that it forces the teacher to stand out the front and look at the students, and that immediately sets up a very strange kind of relationship in terms of the pedagogy. It sets up a kind of authoritarian thing to begin with, but it also is a one-way kind of transmission. It also sets up a lack of relationship amongst the students who can't really talk to each other easily and so on. And at a time when we know that students actually learn more from each other than they do from the teacher. So this is a pretty poor kind of teaching setup, and we got rid of all of these rooms. You can see here in two separate buildings, the Hive and the Arc, that all of our rooms are now collaborative learning spaces. And there are something like 220 of them now at NTU that look like this. This is a particularly large one that is used by the medical faculty in the what's called the experimental medical building. And I'd like to make a comment about this because the medical program is our newest program at NTU. It's been going now for about 6 years, and there are some really important things to note about it. One is throughout the whole of the medical degree, there is not one single lecture. Students don't go to any lectures. All of the material is online. It's true flipped classroom. Everything's online. The students come to the classes, which are long seminars where they work together in groups, and they're facilitated groups. It's the students who do work with each other. There's no lecturing. The faculty are only there to give them guidance. Now, one thing I want to say here is this. No university is going to take a risk with medical education. So you're not going to do a form of medical education that doesn't produce fantastic doctors. It's too high risk. So this is a very good way of educating students, and it's been shown to be good because it produces doctors who know how to work in teams apart from anything else. Now, some of the things that this leads to, and this clicks into very much to augmented and virtual reality, that these are some of the things that occur. Collaboration among students, interaction between faculty and students, the visibility of student work and ability to get feedback, and access to online resources. So all of these are really good ways of dealing with student learning in terms of helping students to be more conceptual, to work with each other, to work in teams, and to be able to use online resources and develop a form of information literacy as well. The other thing too, of course, is that one of the things that the research tells us very, very clearly is that honestly, sitting in a lecture and then going off and doing laboratories or whatever afterwards is, you will learn something from it, but it's one of the least effective ways for students to learn. The best way of learning about anything is doing, as Richard Branson says. And I often think about this in terms of an apprentice, for example. Let's take an apprentice plumber, and what happens is the apprentice plumber actually learns on the job by doing the job and being guided in doing that. So that kind of guided learning through doing is really what we would suggest at NTU is a better way of doing things. There's also evidence from research and this study from Chicago, which I won't go into in any great detail, but it shows from brain scans, apart from anything else, that students who physically experience scientific concepts understand them more deeply and score better on science tests than those who sit in a lecture taking notes. So in other words, the physical engagement of the body or embodied cognition, as it's often called, is a much better way of learning than we have traditionally done in universities. Further research that I find really interesting comes from a study done last year in the University of Copenhagen, which shows that if you compare 3 groups of students, some all about learning laboratory safety for chemistry. If you compare these 3 groups, what's interesting is that in terms of their factual knowledge, they don't differ from each other. So the desktop VR simulation, immersive VR simulation, and conventional safety manual, all students have about the same in terms of their factual knowledge. But the most important thing about this is that what they found was that when the students were actually put into the laboratory and put into a high-risk situation, high-stakes real context, then in fact, the immersive VR group outperformed significantly the other 2 groups, and the desktop VR group outperformed those who'd used the lab manual. So where it really counts in real world problem solving, that's where this comes through. The problem is that very often in higher education, we don't ever measure that. What we measure in our assessment is the factual knowledge, and therefore we don't get very far. And that's reproductive knowledge. I'm suggesting that what we need to do is to move from reproductive knowledge to productive knowledge. Reproductive knowledge is what we've all been through, many of us at university, which involves rote learning, often facts or formulae. It involves memorization of problem types and solutions. This still happens. I know it happens because I go to lots of classes, or I did until the beginning of this year. And I see this happening at a number of places around the world. Reproduction of existing knowledge, and largely assessment, very often assessment through multiple choice questions, which are very poor predictors of students' understanding. I could go on for a whole hour about multiple choice questions and the recent research that's been done on them, but of course there's not time, this is not the time and place to do that. So this form of reproductive knowledge, which we've been focusing on, is actually not going to produce the students who are capable of learning to learn and keeping on adapting to changes in the new world. Another thing that is worth mentioning here is this study by John Hattie. Some of you may have read this. John Hattie's possibly one of the most famous educationists in the world at the moment. I've been very lucky to work with John over the last 5 years on a grant selection panel. And so I've had a number of conversations with him about this. And one of the things that he has found from his study of 50,000 individual studies looking at what kinds of things have the most effect, what kinds of things have the most positive effects on student learning. And he says that the remarkable feature of the evidence is that the biggest effects on student learning occur when teachers become learners of their own teaching. In other words, what I was talking about before, where teachers end up becoming when they learn about how to teach and they think about their teaching, and also when students become their own teachers. when students become their own teachers. That's where the biggest effects come. All right, so now we ask, how do we do these kinds of things? What happens? And I'd suggest to you that we do have a solution for this in Eon XR, and our education solution is partly directed towards student self-directed learning, active and self-directed learning. In other words, it fulfills the kinds of things that I've been talking about up until now, active and self-directed learning. I mentioned to you before, and Akhand has as well, that we have at Eon Reality an education board, which is chaired by Professor Bertil Andersen, and he needs no more introduction because you've already heard about him. This is the Eon Reality Education Advisory Board, and it's designed to get people from around the world who are experts in various forms of education, not just higher education, but also people who are interested in TVET and other forms of education as well, to discuss how the platform can be, the Eon Reality platform can be used for education. So what can it bring to student learning? First of all, if you are we encourage students themselves to create lessons on the platform. So this is student self-directed learning. At one university in Kosovo, University of Business and Technology, in 163 courses now, it's the students who are actually creating the augmented and virtual reality lessons themselves. And they are learning by constructing the lessons. These are their assignments. So they actively construct their learning. They're constructing rather than consuming. It mediates learning transfer. That is the transfer of learning from theoretical knowledge to applied knowledge, which I was talking about before. If you are using augmented and virtual reality, then automatically you're involved in real world contexts. And those real world contexts give you the ability to see how you can use your knowledge and apply it to the real world. But it also means that you can do things like take risks. So you can do things in virtual reality, for example, that you actually wouldn't want to do in real life because they're too risky, but it helps students to see the results. There's one, for example, there's one application that's about ophthalmology that was developed between Eon and a university in America. There's a virtual patient, and what you can actually do is to introduce certain kinds of pathologies into the eye that you would simply never do with a real patient, but you can see a lifelike version of what actually happens if you do that. So in other words, you can take these kinds of high risk applications and see what happens. It also provides a rich environment of realistic cues. And I've got context-dependent memory there. You may wish to follow up on this. I write a blog for Eon Reality every 2 weeks about AVR and education. And about a month and a half ago, I wrote this one that's on the link that you can see here about context-dependent memory. Very briefly, what context-dependent memory says is that when we are learning, we are unconsciously taking into account and associating with our learning the environment in which we're working. We don't isolate our learning from the environment. And I can give you a very quick example. Let's say that you are in the kitchen of your house and you want to go into the bedroom to fetch something from the bedroom. But when you leave the kitchen and you go into the bedroom, you find that you get to the bedroom and you've forgotten why you're there. You've forgotten what it was you came to get. You've been thinking about other things. This kind of thing happens to everybody. What's the best way to remember what it was that you wanted? The best way is to go straight back to the kitchen. Why? Because when you had the thought, the kitchen, the actual environment of the kitchen was unconsciously being associated with that idea. So the obvious implication here is that virtual reality can create the kinds of contexts that are real world contexts, which then provide a better association with the memory. I think, I'll just let me check if this works. Can you tell me if this is actually showing? Can you see this moving or not?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay. All right. So look, here's an example of one of the reasons that, I'll just stop it for a minute and explain. One of the reasons that that I believe Eon's AVR platform is so incredibly useful for student learning is because it requires, for the user, it requires no coding, it requires no special technological knowledge. It also doesn't actually require any special headsets or anything like that, though you can, of course, use it with headsets. But if you just want to use it, you can use it on your phone. So what you're seeing here is somebody with a phone. Now, let's suppose this is a student at home. The student has a phone. They're looking at an electronic board, and it's an augmented reality model. And what they're doing is using the markerless AR function to put that onto their desk. But at the same time, they're looking at a real board. So here's the model, and that's been placed in augmented reality markerless mode onto the student's desk. So the student can zoom in and out, turn it around, have a look at it. And in a minute, you will see, here's the student's own board. And you see this is live, so that, I mean, in terms of it's videoed with the student actually putting the real board next to the one in virtual reality. Now, what I'm suggesting to you here is that, okay, there's a lot of very sophisticated augmented and virtual reality, but what we also want is something that is easily usable. And you can see here that this is something really easily usable by students. What's more, Eon Reality also makes it very easy to do remote collaborative learning. Here you can see an example of somebody doing training with a jet engine. So that there's a virtual engine there, and the person is getting direct training from a trainer. This is another aspect of the Eon platform. And here you can see that this is real. This is SBS buses in Singapore, and the person is learning, is checking maintenance on the engine with a virtual reality, augmented reality overlay for a Volvo engine. So these are the three main aspects of our platform, and I think I hope that from what I've just shown you, a very quick demonstration, you can see that there is an obvious kind of educational value in this. However, I want to throw out, I'm going to finish in a second, and I want to throw out to you some challenges, because I think this is a really exciting area of future education. I think this is where education is heading. I think that it's going to be a revolution in many kinds of ways, but it provides some challenges. And I think these are some of the challenges that we need to probably need to look at. How do you link AVR, augmented and virtual reality, to meaningful education outcomes? Now, one of the problems that we often have with educational technology, I've worked on the other end of this. So I've been at a university where pretty well every week, somebody from some educational technology company comes along to me and says, look, we've got this wonderful new product. Look at all the things that it can do. Whiz bang. You know, and so that we're all always meant to be impressed with the kinds of things that it can do. But then when you start talking to them, they often don't have any sense of how it's going to be meaningful for student learning. It's novelty value. and everybody says it thinks it's wonderful simply because it's new technology. Well, that's just not true. And in fact, a lot of it has now disappeared. I think there are probably dozens of books to be written about the forms of technology that never got off the ground because they actually weren't particularly meaningful. So the point here is to say, how do you link AVR to meaningful education outcomes that look to the future and which are based firmly in research about how humans learn? In other words, you need to link those kinds of things. There's a career in that. And in fact, you know, it's an exciting way to look at everything. How to improve the sophistication of AVR for education and also increase usability. One of the things that Eon Reality has clearly done is to make this as usable as possible. Literally all you need is a phone. We're finding in lots of countries around the world, that's what students have. There are some countries we've worked with where students don't actually have computers, but they do have phones, and that's all they really need, and that's all they need for using the lessons as I showed you, but also for remote collaborative learning where 50 of them can be in the same virtual space at the same time. That's another capacity we've got. But how do you improve all of that? How do you improve the sophistication of it? And there's that's another thing that people might be interested in finding out about. How to integrate AVR and performance analytics. This is going to be one of the cutting edges, I think. You saw before that you can have people doing performance like the guy who's maintaining the bus. Okay, so how can you use analytics to measure that person's performance and to increase the sophistication of those analytics? Another really interesting area for people to go into, I think. And also how to train the next generation of AVR developers who have both imagination and creativity. Frankly, I can't imagine what AVR is going to look like in 10 years' time, because it's going to be beyond anything that I can imagine myself. But there will be people who will want to imagine that and who will want to develop it for education in the future. And I will leave it there. I don't know if you want to ask questions now or afterwards, but I'm happy either way.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for that perspective. That was seriously, something that sounds futuristic, and this is where all the young minds and blood, they have to look at from a long-term perspective, and this is where the industry will also going to shape up. Particularly for the Q&A, probably we'll park it towards the end of the session, because now there are a couple of things that I wanted to address, and I'm sure the participants, whosoever has joined from the education community, it will be music to their ears. So with that, Aaditya, if you can please allow me to share my screen.
I think, Akhand, you can already have an access to share the screen. Yeah. Now I can see your screen. Yep.
Perfect. So yes, Peter did mention about certain challenges, and the wonderful thing that he was talking about. Not wonderful, but this is the brutal reality when he talks about the skill gap. And this is where, I have also cited one of the example, and I wanted to bring the attention for all the students. And next 10 to 15 minutes, I want your attention, because there is something for you guys, so that we can take it forward. Now, the most important question you all must be having is, why are we here? Right? I mean, as far as the learning is concerned, Google is there, technology is there. But what we as an industry leader, we have identified few problems and certain challenges. Few were already addressed by Peter. But what we see, the basic challenge is the technology disruption, which is actually leading to the skill gap. And that is actually resulting to unemployment, right? And this is one of the growing pains for all the higher education students, once they are finishing up their course. In fact, this is one of the examples that I wanted to cite from Harvard Business Review, which exactly captures the skill gap. You can see the orange line highlights the number of hiring done by the employers over a period of 5 to 6 years, whereas the number of job opportunities which is actually available in the market were much higher. So what does that mean? That means that, there were more jobs, but companies are not able to hire people. Why? The only reason was, there was a skill gap, and I'll give you a very simple and a basic example. This is something you can do a litmus test, every one of you, by sitting at your workplace or in your home. Just go on any of the job sites like Naukri, Monster, LinkedIn, or whatever job sites you follow. Okay. And if you guys like those, the computer science guys, okay, you guys can just Google around, just type a keyword, Java developer, freshers, opportunity. Okay. You will get certain number of, opportunities. And for freshers, definitely is always challenging. For mechanical students, go and look for some job in your core industry or core, subject. The options are limited. And this is what the brutal reality is. But hear me out. Just go and type a keyword like AR developer or digital twin expert, something like that. And this is, I'm talking across the department. You have mechanical, you have computer science, information science, electronics, electrical, so on and so forth. There's a huge set of opportunities which is there, right? Now, the way industries have transformed, they're looking for very niche skill. And this is why it becomes very critical for us to have that extra edge. Also, talking about, this is one of the citation I've captured from McKinsey, by the way. And there's something I'm not talking about maybe 20 years or who has seen the future, but to be realistic, if you see any platform which comes in the industry, the normal shelf life for any of the platform is usually 8 to 10 years. Earlier it used to be 15 years, but now it is like close to 8 to 10 years. And if we see that, by 10 years, by 2030, half of all workforce in Japan and 33% of US workforce will require training, retraining, right? What does that mean? That means there are a hell lot of jobs which will gonna displace, that will gonna there will be a lot of job cuts due to automation, robotics, introduction of AI, and so on and so forth, right? So at one point you can say that, okay, technologies are killing jobs, but at the same time technologies are creating new jobs. Look at the example we have in our own country, like Ola and Uber. Look at Zomato. I understand we are going through this pandemic where there is a lot of job cuts and layovers and these things are happening, but this is something which is beyond our control. But what has actually technology has done is, if we see examples like Zomato, Swiggy, Uber, Ola, Oyo Rooms, these guys have used technology and created tons and tons of jobs. Okay, that was more, I was talking about maybe future, what will gonna happen, right? But if I talk particularly about what is there for all of the students today, okay, and this was a report, published by Gartner sometime 3 years back, by 2020, and this is actually happening. I'm talking about this particular year. Half of the top 50,000 companies worldwide, they will have, some or the other form of augmented and virtual reality projects live up and running. You talk about Accenture, Cognizant, Capgemini, you name it, any industry. Even if you go into oil and gas, you can see the kind of work we have done with Shell, British Petroleum, Saudi Aramco, Chevron. So the world is going crazy, okay? And I don't have to quote, outside examples. Today in this panel itself, in this forum, we have one of your college alumni who's a live example, how he converted, I had a chance to visit your college campus, and how this gentleman, along with one of you, more alumni from your college, these guys actually, got the internship with us, and how smartly they worked over a period of time and came up with a solution to solve some of the industry problems. And that's how they actually converted their internships into a full-time job employment. And let me tell you, the guy, Janil Malhara, who's also the college alumni, he's like, if you, I'll probably towards the end after the demo, I'll, request for a couple of minutes if he can share his experiences, how the industry is shaping up. Today, it's not about you carrying tons load of experience, or maybe, you're coming from a, top Ivy League school, but it's about how you can address the industry problem. and how you can propose a solution to it. As long as you can do that, trust me, people are listening to you. People will gonna listen to you, and they're bound to do that. Also, on the solution, on the problem is, it's not about the problem, but how we can overcome the problem and solve the, coming with a solution. So the whole perspective here, when I was talking to Aaditya and shared this idea, and I must say, Aaditya is not only a technology mentor for Techno, but I treat himself as he's a great guy and more like a maverick. Okay, so I'm happy, and like we are, especially Techno, you guys are blessed that you have a fantastic, technology leader within the campus. And we were talking about how we can, help students so that within the campus, if we can come up with some sort of program wherein we can build a community of, augmented and virtual reality developers, right? Now, this particular slide is quite important because those who know something or the other thing about AR, VR, or even if they don't know, but at least there are a good amount of names which are familiar with them, right? Where Eon fits in quite fantastically and very strategically is we are not competing with, the Googles of the world or Microsoft or Apples of the world. No, it's not like that. Where we, bring, value is basically, no matter how, expensive luxury car you can buy, you buy a Maruti or you buy a Mercedes, you cannot drive it till the time you have wheels in the car. And in this AR, VR landscape, in the complete ecosystem, Eon comes more from a platform play perspective and from the content perspective. We all know, if you just read out the names, Microsoft, Oculus, Google, Magic Leap, HTC, these guys are visionary and the industry leaders when it comes to the hardware, right? But all they need is, they need a solid, scalable platform which runs on their hardware. Otherwise, it's like, you have designed a beautiful, hardware, but you don't know what exactly to be played on. Now, and also one of the USPs is like we are one among the very, very few people in the world who owns the platform, and basically that gives you a one-stop solution. You create the application once and it gives you the AR application as well as the VR application. So that's the beauty about it, which actually, if you think about from a client perspective, you are bringing a lot of value add for the customer. Even though, like, all you engineers, okay, for a moment, I want you guys to step out from a student mode and think that, okay, you are going ahead and talking to one of the, industry players like Volvo, for example, okay, and to their CIO or to their director IT, if with that kind of confidence, if you can just speak up for 3 minutes that, hey, look, sir, I've already created an application on servicing your Volvo engines. My application not only, is on AR and VR, but it actually demonstrates a live case, how I can improve your productivity by 25%, or how I can, the cost saving on your training aspect on a yearly budget, I can bring it less than 60%. When you talk numbers, when you are specific in your approach, people are bound to hear to you. And again, we are into B2B space, so that's the beauty. So on the left side, you can see there, like, people from NextVR, Blipper, Amazon, who have burnt out a lot of cash. They've made a lot of buzz in the market, but we all know where Blipper went, right? Or Amazon, even though, it's one of the top companies in the world, but how much cash they have burnt out when it comes to AR and VR, we know it, right? So it's all about, learning from each other's mistake and, build a platform on top of it so that we can bring out, something good for the community. And last, towards the, the last stack is the Unity, Unreal, and Trigen. It's more on the gaming engine side. So, our platform supports that as well. Now, this is a quick background, a quick overview rather about our platform, wherein our plan is we wanted to train, some of the nominated guys or maybe a bunch of students from your college, and we want to make them as a champion so that, they walk the talk and they talk our same language. The whole perspective is here in collaboration with Techno NGR, and special thanks to Mr. Vyas, the director, sir. He's seriously a visionary, and he is dedicated in terms of, how he can create value adds for his students. So this is what the architecture looks like. I'll not get into this in specific, but it doesn't make much sense at this point of time. But what I wanted to show to you guys, and these are like the value adds which has been published in HBR. We worked with Boeing, and our case studies was a part of HBR. We helped them in creating some application which actually increases the manpower productivity by 34 to 40%, which is a huge value add, right? If you talk about in specific, one of the case studies, if I have to address from Atlas Copco, look at the training and the cost comparison. Traditional training methods, if you define an AVR application and then deploy some training, there is like on one side, on service technician training, the cost saving is 92%. Give this stat to any of the CIOs or CEO, he will jump from his seat and he will talk to you no matter what it is. Okay. So these are like, this is what, the number, talks itself. This is one of the flagship, project that we did with Singapore, with SATS. SATS is basically the ground handlers at Changi Airport in Singapore. And with that, the Singapore Airlines got entrusted with us. Now, similar project won us almost 4 awards across the globe, And now you talk about Finnair, Qatar Airways, and there are a few more, even we are working a proof of concept on that. And the best part is not only lies with the beauty of the project, but this particular project was being jointly done by few of the Polytechnic guys in Singapore and along with our team. So what we did is we trained some of the engineers there in the college, and our team was there to do the storyboard, and we encouraged them and we did the complete hand-holding, and together we developed the solution for Singapore Airport. And that was the wow factor for all the audience. Now, all this, okay, you can say Akhand is talking all goodies about like, goody things about AR and VR, and looks futuristic, looks interesting. What the big question is, what is there for us? So this is what the new know-how is. The plan is we wanted to initiate a technology incubator program because we believe if you want to test the water, you have to, put your feet into the water. So we'll follow a simple crawl, walk, run, and leap theory. We'll start with something small just to gauge where, the college talent pool right now exists. I know, there are one of the finest talents I can find out in Techno because very interesting fact, I don't know other audience they know or not, but we work with a lot of state governments also. And for one of the state governments, basically, a bunch of Techno students traveled from Udaipur to Jaipur for the state government project, and they actually helped us for the client demonstration. So Techno itself, I don't treat Techno as just an engineering college, but there's a huge potential which we can take it forward. Okay, I'm gonna skip that part because I don't want to show some sort of back-to-back videos. But what is more important is if I'll take a pause, and this slide is important, and all you students basically just have a look at it, where this market is going. This AR and VR market is growing exponentially. The reason why I'm showcasing all these data is today you are a student, tomorrow you'll be out from the campus and you will be competing in the market, right? So if you don't have the clarity of what exactly the market is, it will be very difficult for you to pick up something as a career. Okay, so AR VR market is growing exponentially. It is expected to cross $150 billion by next year itself. Okay, now it's a simple strategy, and I'm very candid and open to share this with all of you. So even if you see it's $150 billion market worldwide, Eon has a footprint in 27 different countries. Now just do a simple math. Even if I'm taking a conservative figure, even if we can pick up 5%, okay, or 10% of the total market cap, okay, being an industry leader in this, and if we can bring that business to India, or if we tap such kind of 5 to 10% of the total market size, it's huge. Just imagine not only in terms of the number of dollars, but also the kind of jobs we can create. Okay, number of opportunities we can create for each other. And in order to cater such a huge demand, from where I'll get my developers? So that is why it is important to right now start developing AR and VR developer communities, people who can develop the content, right? And when I say development, it is not only to do with the coding, right? It is for people from mechanical department as well as the computer science, guys. You can be a consumer of the content or you can be the creator of the content. And let me give you a live opportunity. I'm working with a lot of schools. In one of the countries, we are going live with 110 schools. Peter is working onto it. 110 schools, we are going live on our platform. And these are like K-12 schools, till 12th standard. Now, right now, the immediate need for us is we need a good, talent pool who should be in a position to actually build the content. I mean, like we have the textbooks, but if we don't have the developers who can actually create the 3D assets, if we don't have people who can create the 3D content, it's a challenge. And that's why, I think, India will definitely play a very, very critical role here. Some of the stats from Goldman Sachs, as I've already addressed, 85 to 90%, is with non-gaming sector. And this is quite crazy. And this is a project I wanted to address. And with that, I will just close my part, and in another 5 to 10 minutes, Janil can quickly explain or maybe just give some hands-on experience. This is a project that we did with ExxonMobil, and I feel when students basically in their first 4 years of their engineering, within your engineering tenure, if you can create some sort of application like this and update it on your LinkedIn, trust me, you will never have a position to look for a job. Build such kind of application, put it on your LinkedIn, people will gonna reach out to you. So this is something, an example which I wanted to quote, that ExxonMobil, they were like annually, they were investing multi-million dollars only on trading. Why? Because to one of their oil rigs, it was such a hazardous condition wherein, after every 4 to 6 hours, people were supposed to be, shift from their, working environment. So for customers, like for the company, it was a huge burden that every 4 to 6 hours they used to onboard almost like 20 to 30 guys, fresh guys in the chopper, bring it from onshore to the oil rig, and and take the previous guys back to the onshore, right? So it was and in between, basically, oil is a commodity. You cannot stop the production because it affects the oil pricing, and it's a huge loss. In between all this like transition, if suppose a company want to train 50 more people, so there's a Herculean task for them. They cannot stop the oil rigging, or they cannot stop the process, right? So how do they do that? How do they do the trading part? So this is where somewhere in Houston, Texas, in their office, basically, we created a complete virtual mock-up.
Two research projects. The first one is advanced 3D immersive training. The idea is to utilize advances in virtual reality, 3D immersive environments to develop a simulator that could be used to train, operators or young engineers joining the oil and gas industry. This system is great because you could basically train on a specific scenario, do it over and over again in a safe and controlled environment without having to worry that, you're going to actually cause an issue in the plant.
Well, that is quite self-explanatory, and you can understand where the real pain for the customers lies. And if people like us can define some kind of solution like that, it's a value add. And with that, I'll stop. The details on this particular initiative, that is Technology Incubator program, wherein I'm planning to together with Aaditya and with Techno's help, I wanted to run basically a certification program. Just to check where your developer communities lie today. And there are definitely a lot of stuff for students' motivation that I'll probably take a separate discussion altogether. But yes, if you talk about, if you're ready to give you 100%, we are there to give you 200%. Then if you talk about the internships, you talk about the on-site learning, you talk about the projects, you talk about employability, everything is on the card. All you need to do is get the skills, prove your mettle, and come on board. With that, I'll stop sharing my screen. Janil, please take the lead. Go ahead, and then probably we'll open the floor for the Q&A.
Definitely. So hello everyone. I hope you all have downloaded the application which I've shared yesterday. I've already created all of your account. So just follow the screen and try to experience the AVR on your headset. Just a second.
So let's start with the demonstration here. First, I'm going to show you how students come to the application, what will be his app workflow, how he can access the lessons. So to first open the application. So here, this is the landing page of the application, wherein on top, your institute name will be there. Just below that, you have a search option where you can directly search a lesson and you can start it. And just below that, you have all the categories which are available in your institute and the lessons assigned to it. So you can see all the lessons and the categories here. I'm going to start with a lesson, let's say four-stroke engine. So I don't have to write the full name. I can write a keyword and I can find all the lessons with the engine name there. So I'm start with the four-stroke engine. Okay. So this is our lesson page in which you have the lesson objective, some of the lesson material if teachers have attached his own notes or some PDF, some PPTs, the lesson material you can find here, and the statistics like how many times you have attempted it, what is the duration you spent on it, and what are the scores out of it, and also it was created by whom. So let's start with the lesson here. Okay, so by default, lesson starts with the touch mode wherein you can interact with the 3D model of it, you can zoom it, and also you can rotate it 360. So also in the left bottom, you can see there are some interaction options are available. So if I click on the X-ray feature, you can see a semi-transparent version of it. You can see through the engine, what's inside it and how it's look like. Apart from this, you have an explode button wherein you can dismantle the whole engine and you can see the parts of the four-stroke engine. And you can enable the annotation as well to see what part is which. So it enables the annotation. Also, to see how this engine works, you can play the animation. So it shows how the four-stroke engine works. Apart from this, if you want to dismantle like part one by one, you can click on the dissection. For dissecting the engine, you just have to click on the part and you can take it out. So this is how you can perform one by one dissection on this engine. To again assemble it, you can click on the explode button. So it will be assembled again. Apart from this, if you want to see the same engine in the virtual reality, the immersive environment, you can click on the VR button. So now the mode will be changed from touch mode to VR mode. So now we have entered in the virtual reality. So for this, you'll be needing a VR class or a VR box. So you can see this single screen. Here we are seeing the split screen, but using the VR box or VR glass, you'll be only seeing the single screen and it will be a virtual reality experience for you. All the interaction options which we had in the touch mode, we have here also. So you can explode whole the engine here. So enabling this option, you only have to see it for like 3 to 4 seconds and the option will be enabled. To change the view, you can use this eye icon here. Just hold it for like 3 to 4 seconds, just see that icon and it will be changed for that. Also, if you want to lock this model in the space and you want to see a 360 view of it, you can use this option. And according to your head movements, actually you can see the right, left, the 360 view of it. To go back, you have to see the bottom down. And now we are back. So we can go to the touch mode now. So that was VR mode. Now we're gonna enable the AR mode. AR mode enables your camera and asks you to point it somewhere so that you can place the object. So you can see the anchor button here. To place the object, I have to click on the blue button. So now the four-stroke engine is placed in the real world. I can move around it and also I can go further in to see the parts. So all the interaction buttons we have here also. So I can explode it. I can see all the parts. Also, I can zoom in to see the parts. If I want to see the animation part of it, I click on the animation. I can see the animation in real world. Also, while we are exploring, if you want some of the introduction part, I can play on the play button.
Students will be introduced to basic engine parts, theory and terminology. Understanding how an engine works and knowing some key related parts and terminology is important for working on any vehicles.
Apart from this interaction buttons, we also have some of the activities. I'll show.
I hope you all have seen this video. So here I gave just gist of the application created AVR, wherein we have seen how we can actually bring the four-stroke engine in a real world. So out of this training program, we'll be trying that all of you will be making your own AR/VR modules on our platform. So like
Thanks, Janil. That was quick, and the whole perspective for all you students basically was to give you an understanding how such an application can be easily created and can be presented to the corporate players basically, so that they are able to connect the dots. And also the bigger value proposition is if the students can come up with their own designs, and which of course increase their employability and their overall portfolio in front of the prospective employers. So with that, we'll just stop our part here, and Aditya, or I'm not pretty sure if Professor Vyas is online. I definitely need 2 cents from him as well as from you. So is Dr. Vyas with us today?
Let me see. I think he's not online.
Oh,
but
okay.
That was a wonderful session. The valuable insight by Dr. Peter Luker, the entire pedagogy on the higher education and the current situation with the online education system, right? And we already have discussed with the community plan with the Techno India NGR. So yeah, let's move forward this plan with the betterment of the students, and we'll definitely have a one progressive and proactive community for the content or for the assist development using the several platforms such as Creator AVR and so on. So yeah, we'll start as soon as possible. I can just
Sure.
let me know when we can start.
No, absolutely. We'll come up with a roadmap, and we will be in touch with you. And just towards the end, if there is any specific question for Peter from the participants, or if there is any specific question they have posted out, fair enough.
Yeah, sure. Yogendra, please, if you.
Okay, so let me check if there is any question from some participants in QA or chat. So in the meanwhile, if participants, so I request all the attendees, if they want to ask some query to any of our speaker, they can put the questions in the QA or in the chat. Okay. In the meanwhile, participants give their queries, put the queries in the QA. Let me ask a question. I have a query.
Please
The
go ahead.
question is, yeah, sir, you have shown that in Creator AVR, you have shown that Arduino with AR support for electronics with Arduino, the one example given by Dr. Peter that he has shown. So
yes.
Is there any simulation involved in that, like simulation of the code, whatever code we write with the Arduino? Or is it just the modeling part, like how the components are connected or that thing?
In that case, it's just the modeling part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like we can model and we can see actually how our system is going to look in that case.
Yes.
Okay, that's the 3D model of that thing.
That also can be done through the animation part of Creator, where we can actually show how you can actually create your own circuit. So
okay.
that can be enabled for that.
Okay.
Also, Janil, after I can please.
Oh, sorry about that. Professor Yogendra, this is basically when you talk about the simulation. See, what Peter showed, it was just a 3D asset in augmented reality fashion, right? And that is just in 3D asset. But when you create, or basically, when we create a complete lesson, the coding part or whatever nuances that has to be captured as a part of the topic that can be covered, and that can be hosted for the students too, for their learning, basically. Aaditya, over to you.
So basically, this is a platform where we can actually anchor our lesson and entire thing. I have gone through the Creator AVR when it was in early stage. We were so fortunate. So okay, Janil, if you can sort out one question for one of my students. He's basically from mechanical department, and he want to ask that if he can develop some few 3D models and how to bring those 3D models into the AVR platform, whether it is any Raptor kind of tool or what kind of files extension supported for those assets to bring into virtual reality, and what extra effort or what extra learning he or she wants to go for to create a virtual entity.
Sure. Basically, like if you want to create a AR/VR module and you want to bring it in like real world or in the virtual world, firstly you have to create an asset first. So what we see in augmented and virtual reality is basically a 3D model of it. Okay, so using our Creator AVR platform, what we're going to do firstly in this certification program, we'll firstly train you how to create that asset first. After doing that asset, we have plugins for let's say 3ds Max. So we'll be teaching you how you can actually model that let's say 4-stroke engine only. Okay, so you'll be modeling that 4-stroke engine with all the texture, lighting, camera settings and everything. With help of the Eon Raptor, you'll be bringing that model to a AR/VR environment on Creator AVR application. So basically with that application, you'll be enable your 3D model to an augmented reality, virtual reality, and also on HTC Vive. So I already know that our college has HTC Vive set up with us. So we'll be practicing that also. So we'll be bringing that models in high-end virtual reality systems as well.
Also, that's what a wonderful answer, Janil. Thank you. I have a significant question for Dr. Peter, if you allow me to ask.
Please,
sir, so I have heard lot about augmented reality in education system, and the same time I heard a lot about machine learning and artificial intelligence. Can you just bridge those tools into the single pipeline where we can integrate the machine learning significant solution with an artificial or augmented reality for the education purpose? I mean, I can go through several examples on internet, but in real time, I think it's a bit difficult right now. I'm not talking about the future, but right now it's looking like for applying the AI based augmented reality system for the education system is a bit tricky in right now. What is your thought about it, sir?
It may be a bit underdeveloped right at the moment, but that's certainly something, that's a direction that we are going in, and I think it's really important for the future. I mean, I think you've put your finger on exactly the kind of thing that we need to develop in the future. I mean, we are looking at the moment very much at how we can develop systems for, say, assessing student performance, and that's going to probably going to involve perhaps more text that students input into assessment and so on. And there needs to be machine learning in order to be able to understand the text and to be able to assess the students. That's something that will come in the future, I think.
Sorry. Okay, that's the point. But how to make a student understand about it? Students are running after the machine learning and AI, artificial intelligence in this era. But when I talk about augmented reality, when I throw a few videos regarding on those, I think we already talked with Akhand, if you remember. If you can point out, Akhand, that how we can make students understand about this is the futuristic era where student definitely invest some time and develop these fantastic technology.
I'll give you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think about that is that first of all, you have to get them interested and engaged, right? And so what I see as part of the point of the EON platform is that because it makes it very easy, as Aaditya has actually shown already, it's very easy to make lessons on the platform. It's very easy to use them and so on. Now, one of the problems at a lot of universities that I've been to, and Dan Layskar and I went to, and a few others, we went to 14 universities in Australia at the beginning of this year before COVID-19. And one of the things that we discovered was that pretty well all of those universities, all of them, are working on augmented and virtual reality. But the problem is they're working on it, so to speak, from the ground up, meaning that they're developing dedicated applications for particular subjects, particular disciplines and so on, and it's a lot of work, right? So we went to one university where I used to work, and they've got a team, they've got a small team of about 4 people, and their job is to build customized applications for physics or for chemistry or whatever it happens to be. The problem is that number one, they need to use headsets, and this is literally true. The team walks from lecture theatre to lecture theatre or class to class with a kind of trolley full of headsets that the students are going to use. It's not convenient, right? It's kind of hardware heavy to begin with, and it's also very heavy in terms of the actual development of the applications. So the problem with that is that only a very few students are actually getting to be engaged. There are very few students are actually getting the hands-on experience of doing the AR and VR in their classes. The point of this platform is that it makes it easy for mass usage. Now, my point is this, that if you want students to be developers, for example, if you want to get them involved in the future in actually getting into this industry and developing it, the first thing you've got to do is make it possible for them to get engaged as students, so that they're actually they're developing, if you like, a certain form of digital literacy by doing it, simply by playing around with it. By playing around with it, they're going to say, oh, actually, you know, there are a few more functionalities that I'd quite like from this. Well, that's for them to go and develop in the future, perhaps. But they need that experience first. And so I think a really important point about this platform is its availability, its accessibility to a large number of students who may then want to go into augmented and virtual reality as a career. But they need to experience it first, is my point.
Exactly.
Also, Aaditya, you know, just to also, in addition to what Peter has mentioned, here again, more from the student's perspective, more from an interest, or more from, like, you know, a person, aspiring mind who's looking forward to pursue his career, what is that, like, you know, the secret ingredient that, or maybe the driving force for he or she probably focusing on is. I'll give you some live cases which has happened in India. I don't have to, you know, take examples across the globe, which is just available for us next door. Look what is right now happening in Assam, okay, when there is a fire in one of the oil wells, right? People have no clue how to, you know, overcome that situation. It's a havoc basically. What has happened 2 years back in NTPC plant, you know, where the boiler got like burst, right? People had no clue how to, you know, perform the safety regulations, how to, you know, create a virtual mock-up of the entire design, or for the refineries or for the thermal power plants, right? You know, the list is pretty long. Okay, you talk about today also, you know, I'm talking to a few of the oil and gas customers within India. You know, I'm talking to NGC, I'm talking to oil, you know, Indian Oil also. Now, the whole perspective is, you know, when it comes to training, and one of the, you know, leading thermal power plants, I'm not going to name them, but if I see overall, you know, year on year, they have to train minimum 10,000 people on the safety standards. Okay. And the number of trainers they have right now with them is less than 18, 1-8. Okay. And out of that 18, almost 10 people who are actually on like, they have retired, okay, from their age. I'm like their working age. Okay. They are like 65 plus. Okay. But still, because the company wants them, because, their knowledge is so critical and they don't have the perfect trainers or the good trainers to train that 10,000 number. So they are still, involving these 65-year-old, people who are now almost like, in their, towards the old age, but still they are coping up and training, 20, 25 years old guys in the field. What does that define? This defines is that we have talent, okay, but we never came up with a mode or a process wherein we can transfer those knowledge for the next generation, right? AR, VR is the missing piece. Okay, now this is one part of the thing, and the opportunity, the scope, the volume is huge. Okay, you take any industry, I can give you a live example. Now, this was with respect to India. I'll give you just last one example, okay, and probably students, they can use their brain and they can actually decide which way to move forward. Think about Apple. Because we are like, working so closely with them. Now, what Apple, if I'm sure you are any which ways following Apple, I know that. But, if people, they read about Apple, what they are doing at, like, another 18 months or 24 months down the line, their plan is totally different. They are, working on a concept wherein they can just remove the concept of mobile phones or MacBook Pro or laptops and so on and so forth. They believe that if any of their customers, they have a smart watch, and if they have their AR glasses, that is good to go to perform the task, right? You talk about all big guys, Facebook, Oculus, right? They have the recent release of Oculus Quest. It's a fantastic hardware, right? All the HoloLens too. We all know Microsoft, right? So if these young crowd today, they are aspiring or they have aspiration to work for such big fish, such big sharks, okay, like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, so on and so forth, let me tell you, here is the deal. They all have some fantastic hardware. The badly requirement is who will gonna create the content for them, who will gonna provide the platform for them. And this is where the value add is. And all the students who are today a part of this conversation, think about it, take your time, and you all have our coordinates. You can get our coordinates from Aaditya. Think about it, share your thoughts. Still you have any questions, please feel free to shoot it to us. And let's together take this forward as a successful story. And towards the last, I'll end up by saying, once again, thank you so much. I'm not pretty sure if Dr. Vyas is there on the call or not, but really thank you so much, Dr. Vyas. I'm a big fan of yours and your approach, the way you take things. You are definitely more like a warrior, though your measures, your working style is quite aggressive. And I really appreciate that. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to take this session. Special thanks to all the academic people, especially the staff. Yogendra sir, thank you so much. And Aaditya, I don't needless to say, you are a buddy, man. You're a friend. So thank you so much.
Anytime.
And Peter, thank you so much
So,
for your time.
Before ending the session, there is one question.
Sure.
As we have discussed, like we should have build a community for AR VR. So what kind of steps we can take for building such community?
Yeah, so we have already shared a roadmap with Aaditya, and we are in a almost a point of freezing that roadmap. If I have to just give you a glimpse of that, so the plan is we will gonna start a small certification program from the first week of August, wherein Aaditya knows, like basically he'll gonna do the nomination for the students, and those particular set of sample size of students will gonna perform certain training, and from that we'll take it forward. And of course, as we move along in the journey, there are a lot of stuff which is there in the pipeline. We're looking for a full-time certification program. We are planning for a short-term certification program. We are open to conduct some hackathons also, and there is a lots and lots of stuff for students. It is still waiting in the pipeline. So that's why I said you talk about the rewards and recognition, employability, internships, global learning initiatives. People, the young minds, the young talents, they are aspiring to travel to abroad. Collaborate with Peter's team in Singapore at NTU. The doors are open. Sky is the limit as long as you have the capabilities in you.
So thank you very much, sir. Hope all the students have been inspired by this, and we'll see so more and more students in this field of AR and VR. So we are moving towards the end of our session. So I would like to thank Dr. Peter, Mr. Akhand, and our own Janil. Thank you very much for providing the time for our webinar. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, sir. Thank you for your valuable time and insights on the AVR. I mean, really, really inspiring to me and my students, obviously. And I can will definitely roll out of whatever we had discussed, and will build a progressive and proactive, community with the Techno NGR and your reality. That's for sure. And Janil, this is your time. You have to take a lead. This is your college, and you know what to do.
No, absolutely. We are all one team, and Janil is a warrior, man. So rest assured. Under Peter's guidance, we are all pretty much aligned and tuned in.
Exactly.
So rest assured.
Definitely.
Thank you, Aaditya sir, Yogendra sir, and Mr. Vyas to arranging this webinar. Thank you.
All right,
thanks, everybody. Thanks for inviting me, Akhand, and I look forward to meeting you all again sometime.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely
Sir.
a pleasure.
Sir.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Have
all.
a great day.